had a nice start for the day. And my name is Ankit Khare. I'm an AI technologist at abacus.ai. And I welcome you all here. I'm really glad that you all are here for this talk, and I'm very excited for this. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the schedule for today. First, I'll be taking off with some of the deep learning concepts that you really need to know for working with abacus.ai and training successfully your model and getting some really amazing predictions from it. And then after that, Yuri will take over with some forecasting use case, to be precise, revenue and sales forecasting use case. And he will go through the entire process of demonstration again so that you would be reinforced. And then finally, we will have a Q&A session where we would be very privileged to answer all the questions that you might have. So with that, I think we should take off. Okay, so this is the title of this workshop, Developing Customized Neural Networks, Forecasting and Predictive Modeling. So forecasting and predictive modeling, these are the two use cases in context of which we are going to demonstrate everything today. So there will be a live demo where we will take a data set, and then using that data set, we will train a model. Step by step, we will show you how to get predictions using that model. Okay, so now you are clear with why forecasting and predictive modeling. But the second part is why the title is Develop Customized Neural Networks. So there are two catches in there. First is customization. So in our platform, we have like two options for different kind of audiences. First one is for somebody who's very familiar with deep learning, they can get a variety of customized advanced training options to play with various knobs that are there in neural network and get a lot of variations in the results that gets generated from that trained model. And the second catch is for somebody who might have limited familiarity with deep learning or machine learning in general and data science. So for those kind of people also, we have provided something called AutoML. You might be familiar with that. Like the whole platform, abacus.ai platform, it's like AutoML backed, which essentially means that it's intelligent enough to set the right hyperparameters for the model that you're willing to train so that you could get awesome results, even if you're not familiar with machine learning. So that's the overall essence of the title, and that's what we're going to do it today. So let's go ahead and start with the talk part, the deep learning concepts first. So before diving deep into the concepts themselves, let me introduce you a little on deep learning and deep neural networks. This is essentially the same. The names are used interchangeably quite a lot in the industry as well as academia. So the right diagram is kind of self-explanatory, right? Artificial intelligence, and a subset of it is machine learning, and deep learning as a further subset of it. Nothing so special about that, right? But still, I wanted to keep it because a lot of people like confused and see deep learning as the means to everything, as a solution to everything. And obviously, deep learning is so powerful that it is quite likely that somebody would assume that. Deep learning is so active research area that most of the papers that you will see in academia are like under this domain only. And obviously, I mean, the impact that the field has made and the variety of problems that got solved using deep learning is unbelievable. So there are some other advantages to deep learning as well, like for example, feature engineering. It requires less feature engineering as compared to a lot of classical machine learning techniques. And it beats them all most of the time, even with lesser data if done right. So that is one point that I would like to emphasize here. So on our platform, we actually have proved many a times that how we are able to beat classical machine learning results using deep learning, even when the data provided is quite less. So with that, let's go to the use case itself. Predictive modeling use case. So this is the use case that I'll be taking over. My demo will be based on predictive modeling. So let's first get into the specifics of what predictive modeling stands for. When you point your data to this use case, there are only two things you need to take care of. First is what are the inputs and what is the output that you desire? What is your target output? And the second is to the right data. If you do just this much, then the use case will take care of the model selection, which means the algorithm selection, and then the model creation and deployment in our environment for you. So with that, let's start digging a little deeper into the concepts associated with deep learning and specifically the predictive modeling use case on our platform. So this slide seems to be a little heavy, and I deliberately kept this like this because I wanted to convey a very important message here that this is all you actually need to know in order to train successfully a model on abacus.ai and get some really cool state-of-the-art predictions using it. Data splitting, dropout, batch size, learning rate, AutoML, and ensemble averaging. That's all to it. So even if you have like a good familiarity with them, then you are really good to go. And for the ones who really know it, then they're already good to go. So, but still, because I want to address all of you, I would like to briefly mention and then even dig a little deeper into some of these. So let's start with data splitting. Let's have a look at this diagram. It's actually just this much. There's a training set. You fit your model using this training set. There's a validation set. You tune your hyperparameters on the validation set. And finally, you have an untouched test set that you utilize in order to generate the results and see how good they are. Then there's dropout. Dropout essentially means that there's some neurons in the connections to them that are dropped arbitrarily at every iteration, and then you get better results, better generalization. Then there's batch size. Batch size is like number of training data points that you're using per iteration in order to tweak these weights for all these neurons per iteration. There's learning rate, which essentially means that when you're tweaking these weights, how much do you want to absorb from that gradient? So that is basically the learning rate. But don't worry, we'll like dig a little deeper and make it clear for those who really don't have much of a clue here or context here. AutoML here. So AutoML, as I briefly mentioned earlier, it's just making a neural network abstracted on a second level where the neural network is learning, but another network is making the first neural network learn. So instead of a human tuning the first neural network to get useful predictions, actually now another neural network is tuning the other networks. So that's another level of abstraction, another level of automation that you get using AutoML. And then for the use case predictive modeling, we definitely would be utilizing some AutoML capabilities like that, where the neural network architectures would be structured automatically by another neural network, and then they would be even ensemble together to make the predictions even better. Ensemble means, just as this diagram shows, like there are different structures for the network that AutoML has decided, and then finally you use the prediction outputs, you like club them, the outputs of these structures in order to get a better result. For example, let's say one says it's a car, one says it's a horse, another says it's a car. So you finally like say that it's a car because it's a 2:1 ratio, right? So in a regression case, it might be like the probability of a car. And then you finally average the probabilities to get the output resultant probability, which will be better than an individual network's calculated probability. So with this, let's now start digging a little bit more deeper so that you will be a little more familiar with the nuances for each important things that you need to understand for going through the live demo very successfully. So training set, as I already said, there's nothing more to it. It's just the part of data set that is used to fit the model. Validation set. So this is the part that is used for unbiased evaluation for the training set. Okay, so there's one thing that needs to be taken care of in validation set. As you take the validation set, the configuration gets biased to an extent. How? Because right now what you're doing is you're separating some data and keeping it at for validation, and then you're using the training set to train the model and the validation set for hyperparameter tuning. And then what happens is, according to the patterns in the validation set, your hyperparameters get tuned, and then the model is using the training set to get trained. So this configuration leads to some sort of bias that, okay, the trends in the validation set will be picked up, not the overall training set that will be picked up. So we have some extensive methods like 5-fold or cross-validation, 10-fold cross-validation, something like that. So you need not really worry about those things, but that decreases the amount of evaluation bias, and all those techniques are like embedded in our platform for you. So internally, our system takes care of all those things. And then finally, there's a test data set. We never touch that so that the evaluation remains unbiased, which essentially means that you have this test set untouched. like for machine learning folks, I would like to add. So even if in the beginning, when you're separating these train, test, and validation sets, you don't do anything with test set. So let's say you have some missing values. For those missing values, you would not impute before separation. You would actually separate the test set and then do the imputation of those missing values using mean, median, whatever you want to do with that. So there's no data leakage. So what I'm trying to say is that this is your proxy for generalization. So you should not like touch it. So this is one important fact that I wanted to bring out. Neural network as a function. So this is the backbone. Like I want you all to understand something about neural network if you're a beginner, and that is it's a function approximator. People call it, I mean, in fact, it is actually a universal function approximator, and you might want to look at some visualizations on the internet. There's some really cool visualizations on how good a neural network is for function approximations and how is it a universal function approximator. So basically, I wanted to bring this slide here in order to create a sense in you on how a neural network approximates a function. Let's say there's a parabola. There's like a curve like this, which essentially represents a equation like x equals to y squared, like this data, right? So what will happen? A neural network, a simple neural network architecture like this. It's just a simple neural network written on Keras. So it will produce these orange outputs. That means the parabola would be approximated like this orange thing, right? So that is what neural network does. It learns from your data. It's a supervised learning. So that means you have the labels. So using those labels, it will try to map a function and finally learn that function as well as it could by reducing some sort of mathematical form. And then there's a corresponding loss function to it that we will see. So this is the overall backbone. Like this is the idea of a neural network. But now let me jump onto the algorithm part of itself. And let me highlight a few of the important things there, because like if you end up training a deep learning model, get state-of-the-art results, and you don't even know the basics, that won't be a good idea, right? So people who are really not familiar, I would like to bring this into their attention. So let's say there's this theta. That means like at some point, your initial arbitrary weight in those neurons is like this. In one of those neurons is this. And then this is the best weight that you would attain for the right output that you want for the kind of data that you have. This is the loss function that you have. So what ideally you want to do is you want to reduce and reach to this global minimum for your network to be trained well, right? So how is that done? At every point, you take a gradient. And what gradient does it? It points you to the direction of the steepest descent. So what that essentially means is like, you might have heard of that analogy where people like, there's a guy who is running down the slope and his eyes are closed. And then what will he do in order to get down the slope, right? He will put a step forward and he will try to gauge the depth, right? Like which is the most deepest point. And then he will continue doing that for several iterations. And then he will finally gradually is expected to reach to the bottom. So something like that is happening here. That is called essentially backpropagation, where you like reach to the minimum, doing that again and again. And that is what this mathematical function is representing. There's a gradient to this function that points to the right direction. There's a learning rate, which essentially means that to what extent do you want to take that direction? Because if you take a lot of extent, then there will be like a ziggle and you will move so much. Like let's say in that analogy, if you take the step too far, then you might miss the steepest point, right? Because you took such a wide step that the steepest was in the middle. So something like that you can imagine. So I think that gives you a fair intuition of what gradient descent is, why learning rate is essential to be tuned. And we will see how in our product, these things are being taken care of. Another important thing is batch size. The more training examples, so batch size is essentially just the number of training examples that you give the network in one iteration. And that again plays an important role, because you might think that, okay, the more data you give in one go, the better your estimate of the gradient is at every step. But then look at the cost, like look at the cost it is taking to compute using that huge amount of data, right? So with fewer training examples, that cost is significantly reduced and you're able to calculate the gradient faster, although its accuracy is a little less. So in that case, what are you gonna do? Like to keep it high, keep it low? These questions are like very natural, right? So there's a lot that happens here. Like for example, in the beginning, you can take a a decent batch size with which has both the best of both worlds, or you might like use a variable batch size where in the beginning you have it like a very normal, slow, like a very low batch size, and then you gradually increase it to make the gradient better and better. So there are a lot of techniques. But yeah, I just wanted to give you an idea, and I think you have now a fair amount of idea on this. With that, let's move to the evaluation part. Because once you have everything understood and you have trained the model using our platform, you should have a fair context and intuition on how good of that model you have trained actually is, right? So a bunch of numbers at the prediction UI won't tell you much. So you really need a diverse set of accuracy measures like this in order to evaluate different aspects of your model and see the strengths and weaknesses of it. So that's where accuracy measures like this come into play. I have taken these accuracy measures specifically because the problem that we're dealing with today in the demo is a classification problem. And predictive modeling is a use case that we have on the platform, which essentially deals with two problem types. One is classification, and the other one is a regression. So the one example, the blood transfusion data set that I'm going to take will have classification. So that's why I'm going to highlight the classification and develop intuition using that classification problem type. Accuracy, the simplest one to understand. It's just true positive plus true. Okay. Before that, I think for the beginners, I should briefly go through true positive, false positive. These are the actual classes, dog and hot dog. These are the predicted classes. So vertically, predictions, horizontally, the actual classes. So true is like the prediction part. So true prediction, false prediction. And then positive is the actual part. So true positive comes in this zone. False positive comes in this zone. So now you get the idea, right? So true positive plus true negative. So you take all the right predictions, this quadrant, and then all the predictions, all the total predictions, right? So that's what you get as accuracy. That is one easy formula for that. But there's a catch in accuracy. What if you have all of your data points here like this? Then even if you predict dog all the time, it's 99% accurate, right? So that's why I mentioned that in order to holistically evaluate, you need a diverse and different kind of accuracy measures, which are based on different principles and evaluate your model from different angles. So we have something like precision, which has a definitive form, true positive plus true, divided by true positive plus false positive, which means this divided by this, and then this. So this quadrant, and numerator is this quadrant. So the ratio of the actual classes. So when you focus on the class, then how many predictions were correct for that class will be the precision for that class. Same for the other class. You can focus on this class and calculate the precision for this class. And then there's recall, which focuses on a different thing, which is the prediction itself vertically. So among predictions for a class, how many are correct? So now let's say if you want dog class, then these are the predictions. So how many were correct? So true positive divided by true positive plus false negative vertically. So I think now you have some definite intuition for these terminologies, right? Area under ROC curve is one important thing that you might want to understand to an extent. For example, let's take this curve. So a straight line like this stands for 0.5, which is like, it's just 50-50. That means there's like nothing good learned. It's just random guessing. But something like this above 50% means like something really good, like something beneficial is getting learned, right? So at different thresholds, like you might want to bring the classification threshold like here or here to include more points. So at different threshold, you might be able to calculate all these precision recalls, TPR, FPR, and then you would be able to get a curve like this in order to get a complete sense of where your model stands in classifying the classes. How good is your model in distinguishing the dog class from the hot dog class? That is the entire essence of AUC. The one final point that I would like to bring is class imbalance. So a lot of times during classification, what happens is you have a lot of instances of one class and just a few instances of the other class, and that creates a huge class imbalance. And to address that, that is a very common scenario in a lot of data sets. And to address that, there are a lot of techniques that are available. So one of such techniques we are gonna address within the advanced options on our interface. So within the demo, I'll show you how that advanced option will lead to better results against this class imbalance, how recall will increase on the cost of precision. And I'll show you all those things during the demo for sure. But for now, I just wanted to highlight like what is class imbalance, and there's something that we could do to remedy it. So I think it's time for some real action, and we should get going with our presentation, the demo. So let's get started. Can you all see my screen, the sign up link?
Yeah, I shared it in the chat.
Okay. Yes. Okay, great. So let's walk over the sign up process first. So this is a notebook you already shared with you. Here's the sign up link, which will allow you to sign up for our platform. Just click on this link. And then later we will be using these links, which is just the access to the data set. I'll show you how. But for now, I'll walk you through the sign up process first so you can successfully sign up for our platform. I have doubts at which. The Q&A, we'll take all your questions. Don't worry about that during the Q&A session. But for now, let's walk with me and sign up on this platform so that we could train a model successfully and generate predictions using it. So when you click, you'll get such a screen. So let me say Ankit. Let me use some other email ID, ak49 contentcreator@gmail.com. Let me use some password. Let's say ACD, anything, 8-digit or more. Okay. And then click on sign up. Okay, there you are. Organization name, like you wanna name your organization, like I would be say Ankit's AI org. So that will create an organization. So it's asking you to verify, not necessary to train the model, but if you want this red strip gone, then you're most welcome to do that. So what you can do is like just go to your email. I would want that. I don't want that red strip. So you see here, I'll just go real quick, copy this and just go enter here and verify. Great. So with this, we are on the platform. Good to use it. How long is the trial for? It's going to last a while. Don't worry about that. Sufficient to train a lot of projects, get a lot of amazing predictions. So once we have this interface, we're going to select predictive modeling, as we discussed here on the slides. Click on continue. So you can name anything. For this one, I have blood transfusion prediction. So I will go with this name. Finish. Target variable is blood donated or not. Sorry. Continue. You can skip this because the platform will automatically take all the columns from the column header that we have in the CSV file provided in the link here. So just skip this. Oh, wait, you actually need not skip that. You actually, yeah, I mean, you can skip it or you can like name them as per your convenience. That will name the columns. But yeah, I just skipped it. So with here, we have created the project. Now the next task is to, okay, yeah, I'll be slow. So the next task is to create a data set on this project. Create data set, create new, and the name is blood transfusion data, right? So if you want, you can go to the original data set like this and see the description, blood transfusion surface center data set. So you can name even that also if you want. Okay. So this is the original public data set location. But for your convenience, we have kept this on our platform using this link. We'll use it. But yeah, I just wanted to go to this real quick and show you that this is the data set. And these are the descriptions for these data sets. Like what are the columns stands for. We'll go through that. Don't worry. So getting back here, clicking on continue. and then clicking on import from external service. So this is an important and cool feature. So right now, the file is hosted on our S3 bucket in our cloud environment, in our AWS cloud environment. So what we're doing is pulling the CSV file from this location that lies in the bucket in our cloud. So just do one thing, simply copy this. Yes, so this is the link for the data set. So for this session, this, and for Yuri's session, it will be down here. So you just click here, copy this, paste it here. Okay, we are here. AWS is already selected. We have the cloud location set, and then you'll just click on add data set, and it will get going with this data set upload on the platform. Won't take much time. Great. You can click here to go to the main interface. So what right now it's doing is it's uploading the data on the platform and then processing it to see like if it matches up to the right schema, if the system can recognize the CSV file properly, if the CSV file is in the right format. So the system is automatically doing all those things for you. You need not like really worry about cleaning the file or like handling any kind of discrepancy with the data. It won't take much long. So one important thing I would want to highlight here, that these question marks are the contextual help that we provide in the platform. You can use it whenever you get stuck to get a description of what things stand for. Okay, now that our data has been uploaded, there's one schema mapping it's asking to fix, which is what is your target column, right? What's the link to upload the data? So I already showed the link, right? You just go here. So if I click here, then there will be a new version that is completed. Yeah. So the link is provided here, the S3 bucket. Okay, so let's now fix error mapping. This class is our target variable, which is like if the blood was donated or not in this context. So let's select it and click on continue. Okay, so now it has one requirement satisfied, which is the target variable that it wanted. So as I mentioned in the slide, all you need to do is mark the input and the output and the rest to leave on the system. So we marked the input, like gave it the data location, this one. We got the data uploaded on the system. It checked the data for you. Now it's marking the target variable using your help. It's kind of confirming that, hey, which column do you want as target? Because you might want to predict something else, right? So that's why it is asking you. So now you have set the target, given it that, oh, I want to telling it that, hey, I want to predict the class. That means the blood, whether the blood was donated or not. See here, 0 stands for blood donation, and 1 stands for donation, and 0 stands for not. So that is essentially what it means, that class column. And then we have to check these data types. So if you see here, this is the frequency. So total number of donations. Our recency, months since last donation. So months since last donation, keep that in mind. F, frequency, total number of donations. Monetary, total number of donations in CC, that means like the amount of blood donated. Time, that means months since first donation. So these are the 4 parameters on which it decides whether the person is likely to donate blood or not. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll analyze that these features should be what type. So the system is saying that it's categorical, and this is numerical. So let's do a little bit of data exploration. If we see the raw data, we would be able to see values like this: blood donated 1, 0 values, and then number of months elapsed 41, 2 for frequency, recency. This is the amount of blood donated, right? If we see the probability distributions, we can see here. So this has one important information here: distinct values. That means this column has 31 distinct values. This column has 34. So with respect to these, actually, the system decides whether to keep them as categorical or what. But sometimes we need to interfere and let the system know exactly what we want. We want this to be numerical, because if you see here, number of months, if let's say there are 3 months, and in another data field, let's say there are 4 months elapsed. So 4 is greater than 3, right? So that is what numerical stands for, where you tell the system that, hey, numerical means 4 is greater than 5. And for categorical, that doesn't stand. That means every category is equally worthy. So that's why you do some different stuff for categorical stuff, different kind of encoding. So here, since everything is numerical, we would go make them numerical, tell the system that, hey, system, this is what the values are. This is how you should interpret them. And then this is a categorical class with 2 categories that you need to target. So now we have our categories, our mappings all set. We are very good to start training. So here we are on the training interface. So this is the beauty of the platform that I would like to highlight. Like, even if somebody's feeling sleepy and somehow manages to get the data right on the platform, then with just a bunch of clicks, he would be able to like get to the prediction stage without much hassle. So that's something I really like, especially for somebody who comes with limited familiarity with machine learning. It's really significant. And not only that, there's advanced option for people who are into machine learning, so you can play with them. So let's first do this. Let's first test some advanced options like rebalance classes. So I briefly highlighted what a class imbalance stands for, and we can look at the number of instances here. Like in this data set, you will notice there's a lot of class imbalance. So for such a class, such advanced options actually play a huge role. So what I would do here is I would train true models, one with rebalance off and one with rebalance on. And then we will see how the accuracy measures reflect on these 2 kind of settings that we will have. So let's first train with no, let's say. Okay, so don't do rebalancing, just take it as it is. And let's name it as blood custom model rebalance classes off. Okay. And then, sorry, my Zoom is coming in the middle. Okay. And then now we click on train model. And here you go, your model is training. It will take approximately 25 to 30 minutes for this model to get trained. And we can do same for another. Like, let's go here, click again on the train model, set the advanced options. This time, let's rebalance the classes. Let's type blood transfusion, custom rebalance classes. Yes, this time, okay? Set it to yes. And finally, click on train model. And there we go. So both models are simultaneously training, and you know that this is the true option one, this is the false option one. But for least confusion, I have named them so that we would be able to see without any confusion just by the name itself. Okay, as soon as this training gets over, you would be able to see a notification on your email and an update on the interface as well. Here, this will be over and you would be able to deploy it if you want. And the metrics will be populated here. And in the interest of time, I think, because since we want to develop an intuition for the metrics and understand how that advanced option took care of the metrics, like how the changes are being reflected in the metrics as far as the advanced option rebalance classes is concerned, we would go to another org where I've already trained this model, and we will discuss the impact of this option on those metrics, okay? So let it be training. I hope you all got successful, right? If somebody wants anything, like I can address that right now. If there's any difficulty in training the model, if somebody's lacking behind or something, you can type in the chat box. I can take care of that right now. So nothing is coming. I hope that everything is fine then. Okay, Yuri has taken care of everything. That's great. So with that, let's switch gears and go to the already trained model and see. Okay, so this is my another organization for this workshop that I have. These are all the projects that are there. And this is the same project with the same configuration that we have trained, that I trained earlier last night. And once your training completes, you will be able to see something like this. And then the accuracy measures are here. Okay, so let's click on one and see what's happening in there. Okay, so these are the very same metrics that we discussed earlier: classification accuracy, ROC, loss, label, support, precision, recall. Support is the only one that I missed, but it's so intuitive. You don't even need an explanation, right? 54. So these are the number of ones and zeros in there. And number of ones is 14. So as you can see, the amount of class imbalance that exists in this, right? And you can obviously use the contextual help if you want. But anyways, coming back to precision and recall, if you see for this graph, if you see this graph, if you focus here, for 0, we have this precision, this recall, and this support. 0.794, recall is 1, which is like a perfect recall. And for the other class, the precision is almost like 0, recall is 0. So here comes the problem, right? Your precision and recall are both struggling because of the lack of data points in the data set. So in such cases where there's a heavy imbalance on the data set, you might want to take advantage of some custom tweaking and then change the advanced options to like rebalance and then take advantage of the underlying principles and techniques that we have used to rebalance. But you might be wondering, for folks who are really interested, I'd like to introduce what's actually happening in there, how we are rebalancing, what is the mechanism of that rebalance. But before that, let's first see what rebalance has achieved. So again, for rebalance, yes. So this is the second model that we are training with rebalance, yes. And now look at the improvements. Even with these 14 data points, you have a precision and a recall, which is more than 0 and quite high, actually. You get like 0.5 precision with 2.25 accuracy, which is on just 14 data points using deep learning, which is known to have like less like bad performances on with less data, right? So you can see like it's far better than the baseline, and it's far better than the usual deep learning myth that with less data, you cannot do anything. So that's the entire idea here, that deep learning can be really useful even with less data if it's done right. And that's what Abacus.ai platform is for. We are like trying to do it right. So let's now see one more thing. Here, same thing is getting displayed, precision 25 for the 1. Support, we know what it is, the number of instances, and recall 0.5. So let me get back to the mechanism of the advanced option itself. Like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we doing behind the scenes for getting this kind of boost in precision and recall for something as low as 14 instances for some class label, right? So what we are doing is, let's say you have 2 classes here, that blood is being donated and the other one is not donated. And the number of instances being very low for donated class, what we are going to do is we are going to weigh these classes in such a way that the importance that is given to weighing this, to getting this this prediction right is like let's say 15 times higher than that of the other class. So this kind of weighing makes sure that the network prioritizes that with that sort of emphasis, right? So this kind of weighing technique is the underlying principle that is being followed with in that advanced option of rebalancing the classes. So that is what is getting you these kind of cool results, even with such less data. And there's a lot that goes on to it. If you want to dig deeper, you can study something like focal loss, which we have implemented into the system. And then you can dig even further. Like there's a paper from Facebook on that. You can just Google focal loss and you will be able to get all the details there. But anyways, for the interest of time, in the interest of time, I would like to proceed forward and show you a few other things. So these are the download score options. Like they have all the scores, all the details about all these models. So you can download them. A JSON file will be downloaded if you're interested to analyze deeply. Feature importance is another feature of this platform that we have. That means what feature contributes to the prediction. So once you deploy this, if I restart this deployment, you will be able to know it will be done in like 2 minutes. So what happens here is you would be able to have an explainable result. Like you would be able to know what were the features that were contributing the most for getting this sort of prediction of 1 or 0, right? Like whatever at that data point the prediction was. So that is called model explainability that we have in our system, which is very essential because you might have some intuition on what kind of prediction was made and for what reason, right? So that's another cool feature. And if you want to dig deeper into that, we had another workshop, which I took like a month ago, and that was about explainable AI. And there I explain a lot of methods that we have used in order to produce this kind of explainability in AI models. Okay, so that ends the explanation for this UI screen for the metrics. And you can take advantage of this platform. You can share your models. Like if you go to this model, you would be able to share. You would be able to give a cool image, a cool name, description, a URL for the data set if you would like, and then share with community. And that will go to abacus.ai models. Let me quickly show you. So this is our model showcase. So you can engage with the ML community by training your models and deploying it and then sharing it with the community as well. And then you might also get lucky and be featured in our monthly newsletter that goes to more than 5,000 people. And you might even win an exciting gift card. So yeah, I would encourage you to take advantage of the model showcase and try to share as many models as you want. So with that, I think I have completed everything that I had to. There's nothing in the slides. Yep, I've already covered this as well, like what the platform brings. You just bring your data, you train your deep learning model with not essentially having any AI ML expertise. Then you can deploy your model. It will be good for a day. And then you can again redeploy if you want next day. So basically you have a lot of flexibility there. You can analyze accuracy measures. I gave you a fair amount of intuition on how they can be analyzed, what they stand for. Then I gave you some intuition of advanced training options, how they can be very beneficial for certain scenarios. So you might bring your own data you're very interested into and then play with it, see what advanced options, how they make a difference in those data sets, the accuracy measures for those data sets. And then you can obviously enjoy the cutting edge AI ML in your applications and projects by using our REST API, which works really well in order to embed the cutting edge in our system. That is a target of those APIs. And then finally, I would like to say that thanks for joining. Thanks for walking and training the models with me. And I really enjoyed explaining you all this. And in case of any question in the Q&A session at the very end, I'll be there to answer. And now I'll hand over to Yuri, who will explain you everything again, but in reference to the forecasting solution that we have on our platform. So with that, I'll take your leave for now and stay safe. Take care. Over to Yuri. Hey, Yuri.
Okay, hello. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So thanks, Ankit, for a nice introduction. So yeah, we have actually some questions regarding predictive modeling. Maybe Ankit can answer some of them. So sorry. Okay, so let me share my screen. So hopefully, 1 second. Okay, can you see my screen with a Colab notebook?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, let me open up my presentation. Okay, so I will be covering our forecasting use case. So my name is Yuri. I'm a machine learning engineer here at abacus.ai, and I'm actually responsible for a lot of things in the backend in our forecasting use case and for actually introducing some of the advanced options. So the way I will structure my presentation is that first I will briefly describe what the forecasting is, and then I will start unrolling how we actually handle data, how we handle time series, and in parallel to it, I will talk about advanced options that will allow you to actually have a final control over it. So let's start. Yeah, in forecasting use case, we want to predict the future given some past observations. So here is the screenshot of actual predictions of one of our models. So given the past that here, we represent it as this orange line, we want to make a prediction into the future, starting say from July 25th here, and these are actually daily predictions. So the blue part here are like true values, and the green ones is other values that our model predicted, and this gray area is actually uncertainty range that our model can also give you. So in many cases, our forecasting capabilities are very good. So you can just upload the data set, click a few buttons to train a model, and a lot of things are hidden under the hood, and you will be able to get your forecasting model, well, depending on your data set size within dozens of minutes or within a few hours. And then using advanced options, you will be able to customize, you will be able to select different testing ranges, different parameters for the neural network itself, and etc. So let me actually dive into more details. For the purpose of this illustration, let's consider a case of a data set where we have time series with just 15 timestamps. Like usually, yeah, you can many data sets have much longer history, like hundreds or thousands, depending like on frequency and like how big of your data set. But just for the purposes of illustration and making things easier, let's just consider like shorter case. So when you upload the data set, our platform, if you don't do anything, it will automatically split your time series into training set and the test set. And by default, our platform reserves 10% of the data in the end of your time series for test. But you can change that. You can use a couple of advanced options in our UI to control that. You can either change the test split ratio, that basically instead of 10%, you can say that you want to use 20%, or you can just explicitly specify from which timestamp do you want to start testing. You can also control your training set through a couple of advanced options also. You can change when, at what timestamp training set should start, at what training set the window, at what timestamp a training window should end. So here I'm showing you an example of splitting actually a data set into training set and test set using based on time. In some use cases, you might be interested, instead of splitting the data set into train and test, instead of using time, you can actually split what we call by item. So say you're trying to predict sales, and in your data set you have hundreds of products. So you have hundreds of time series that each of which correspond to every product. And in some situations, you would like to actually split time series based on these products. So by that I mean, in the training set you would have full time series that correspond to some products, and we would like call these products like training products, and then you would test like full time series of some other products. We can call them test products. We can also control the test split using this test split ratio. So in some use cases, it might be actually it might be important to use whole time series, so that the model can have information on the latest time period that would not be actually available if you are doing time-based splits, because we would reserve them for the test and they would not appear in the training set. Yeah, Ankit was also talking about validation set, but we are in this case we are not exposing it in the UI. Instead, we are doing some statistical analysis internally and trying to actually come up with a validation set that would be good enough for driving our search algorithms. So once we split the time series, we will need to actually generate actual samples with inputs and outputs that will go that will our neural network see. So again, let's consider this example. And the way we do it is we take a time series, and then we will chop it up into into different chunks. And different chunks will have for the training part, for the training samples, they will have inputs and outputs. So inputs is actually something that we will use as an input for a neural network. An output is something that a neural network will give us. So this will actually be a prediction. We can control the size of an input using advanced option that we call history length. In equivalently, many people call it context. And our prediction size can also be controlled using prediction step size. So in this particular example, so we generated like the first training sample, taking the first 5 time steps and then as an input, and then next 3 as an output. So how will we generate the second one, the second training sample? So to generate a second training sample, we would basically just shift our inputs and outputs, and to control how much we shift, we use another option that we call overlap. So overlap is something that basically controls how much training samples can overlap in your history length. So basically, like if we set an overlap to be 60%, then it means that for the case of history lengths of 5, 60% is 3. So in this particular case, it means that yeah, we can generate a second training sample in which inputs of which would overlap, 3 inputs of which would overlap with our previous training sample. So we have some difference with how we generate test samples. So in test samples, well, the idea is also the same. So we have like the same input size, but then the difference here is that we can specify prediction length that is bigger than the prediction step size that was used during the training. So basically, one way to think about it, when we actually train the model actually learns to make predictions using this parameter prediction step size, and we sometimes call it also horizon. But in some situations, you might want to extend this length. And the way we do it internally is we would make predictions for the specified prediction step size. And then we will reuse these predictions as an input to generate predictions into the future that are outside of our prediction step size. So in this particular example, at the first step, we will generate predictions for timestamps 11, 12, and 13, and then we will shift everything by 1. So our inputs will start from like 7. And then we will reuse prediction 11 as an input to generate another 3 predictions, 12, 14, 13, and then we will concatenate them. In some cases, you might want to make these things equal to each other. In some cases, you might want to make them different. It depends on the amount of data, and basically it strongly depends on your use case. If you have less data, I would suggest actually reducing prediction step sizes, as this would generate more, as this would allow you to generate more training samples. So another thing that is actually very important for neural networks, they are very sensible to the scales of inputs and outputs. And in general, it's a good practice to scale everything to like 0 mean and unit standard deviation. We have a few ways of doing scaling inside of our product. And basically to control the scaling strategy, we have an advanced options that we call skip local scale target. So if we specify yes for this advanced option, that we will be only using what we call global scaling. And by this, we mean that we compute mean and standard deviations based on all values within the training set, and then we would apply the same mean and standard deviation to scale all of the values in the time series. Alternatively, by default, if you don't specify this option, we will do what we call local scaling. So in this case, we will compute mean and standard deviations based on current sample inputs only. And this has an advantage. We actually usually see that this works better than doing global scaling. And the reason is because network basically learns to use. Basically, the reason is that in this case, all of the inputs will be scaled in the same way, and the network will be able to use the inherent structure of our history, the inherent structure in our history. We can control. We have a few knobs to control how we do local scaling, and one of the important things is actually is a parameter that we call max scale context. Basically, it means how much of the history of the input we will use to actually compute with these means and standard deviations. In some use cases of very non-stationary time series, it might be useful to actually compute the scales based on only a few recent points. Yeah, you can specify like 5 weeks or several months, or whatever makes sense for your use case. So another parameters that you can control using our advanced options is actually architecture hyperparameters. And in forecasting, our neural networks are based on recurrent what is called recurrent neural networks. And the main idea of the recurrent neural network is that it processes timestamps one at a time. So here we use like first timestamp as an input, and we have first recurrent layer processing this input, and then second recurrent layer processing input, and then we produce some output for these timestamps. We can control number of recurrent layers with this hyperparameter, and we can also control number of neurons in every recurrent unit. But then to generate, to process the next timestamps, what recurrent neural network is doing, it will take second timestamp again as an input, but it will also take activations from the previous timestamp as another input. And this will basically allow our network to create some internal representation of what's happening within time series. And our network is based on so-called LSTM layers, which is long short-term memory layers. Basically, this is these layers are specifically designed to have some mechanisms of memory and how to control passing of information as we process different timestamps. And as we repeat this process until we reach the end of the time series. Another part of our network is that you can also use convolutional layers that we stack on top of recurrent layers. In our platform, we're using so-called causal convolutional layers, in which to produce an output, we only look at the past inputs. So convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, they are very popular right now in different areas of deep learning, in particular in computer vision. So they basically allow you to, in computer vision, they allow you to learn different features of the image that could have a predictive power. In our use case, so in computer vision, people are using 2D convolutions. In our use case, since we're working with time series, we are using one-dimensional convolutions. And basically what the convolution is doing, so it's like in this illustration, we're using convolution of a size 2. And what it's basically doing, it's taking two inputs and sums them up with some learnable weights to produce an output. And we can stack up like different, we can generate multiple convolutional layers that will that will process data in this way in cascade. And we can control both number of convolutional layers, and also we can control dimensionality of an output of every convolution with a parameter that we call convolutional filters. So the main advantage of convolutions is that they are basically learnable filters. And we can also, in some use cases, I will also demonstrate to you in a hands-on part. You might even try to disable scaling, and then convolutions will learn how to do scaling by themselves. So other options that are available on our platform, one of the cool features that we have is data augmentation. Basically, if your data set is small, then we can generate some synthetic time series using generative adversarial networks, and we've seen this actually help in many use cases. Another thing is also if your data set have a lot of zeros, or if it's very important for your data set to predict zeros correctly, then we can also include a sub network, within our forecasting model that is basically a classifier, and given enough confidence of this classifier, our network will put 0 at some of the predictions. We can also control optimization parameters, and Ankit already covered some of them. You can control batch size, learning rate. We can also insert batch normalization, or actually we're using batch renormalization layers. You can also control different aspects of regularization, and in this case, we're exposing dropout and L2 regularization factor. So yeah, let me go ahead and give you a demonstration of our forecasting capabilities. So let me go into our workshop org. So basically, yeah. So the process is very similar to what Ankit has described. So in your organization, you can create a project, and for this particular demonstration, so I would like to do sales and revenue forecasting use case. And we are using a public data set here where we will try to forecast how well some models of TV sets are being sold. So let's call this project TV sales forecasting. And then, yeah, similarly, you will be greeted with the screen where you can upload your data sets. So we require, of course, to upload you. We require you to upload, of course, data about time series, about the historic performance. Yeah, so let's create a new data set. So I click on create new, and let's call it TV historic performance. Continue. And then similarly to the Ankit case, we already pre-uploaded our data set to our AWS bucket. So we can import it from there. So let's go back and yeah, let me just copy and paste the link. So we put it here, and then we just click on add dataset. And yeah, and it's currently inspecting and checking if everything is correct with the data set. Yeah, you can also upload another data set that we call item attributes. So this is a supplementary data set that basically contains additional information about items, or like in this case, like different TV sets. Like we might be having like additional data set that might have like additional columns that would describe like what kind of TV set, like how big was it, like whether it's 60 inches, 100 inches, maybe the store, and etc. Like in this case, to make things simple, we'll only be using one required data set. Okay, so it's uploaded. Let's explore. So after the upload, what we will do is then we map the columns within our data set into our internal standard representation. So let's click on confirm schema, and basically, yeah, so item ID internally, yeah, so we have some heuristic internally that would match these columns, and in this case they actually work perfectly. Yeah, and again, in this screen you can also modify types of the columns, but we don't need to do that. So let's after we upload the data set and check if everything is correct, we can train models. But in addition, actually, if you really want to get into details of the data set, you can also explore raw data. So if you click here, it will show actually what's inside of the data set that we uploaded, and it will produce some visualizations also of different items. So basically, like here, it is actually showing on a daily basis sales of different different TV sets. So let's train a model. Let's train our first forecasting model. We just click on the button, train models, and here we're greeted with this screen. Yeah. So to train our first model, we don't even need like to address advanced options. Like we have some internal heuristics that will set them. So let's call this model baseline, and so we would like to predict to make a prediction length of 7, and the data set that we uploaded is on a daily basis, and it depends on your use case how frequent you want to make your predictions to be. So in this particular data set, I find that daily is actually is too much detail, and it's better to aggregate into something bigger. So let's use weekly aggregation. So we will actually, our model will try to make predictions for 7 weeks in advance. And that's all we need to do. We just click on the train model, and actually, since this is this data set on the smaller side, it will take about 10 to 15 minutes to train it. But let's now explore other options and see how they will actually affect the performance of our model. So another thing that we can do is we can include different probability quantiles within our data set. If you remember on my first slide, I showed you like this uncertainty ranges. So these are basically quantiles. Like in this case, these were 90% and 10% quantiles, meaning that our model is trying to find such to make such predictions so that for 90% quantile, it would mean that these predictions will be such that 90% of the points will be like below this prediction, and 10% quantile means that only 10% of the points would be below. So we can use different quantiles, but what is more interesting is actually seeing tweaking different advanced options to generate different models. And in forecasting, we're actually having quite a bunch of them. I did an overview of them in my current presentation, and basically, like all of them have some may have an important impact on your predictions. Like, for example, we can control regularization using dropout rate or L2 regularization factor. We can set like different things here. We can also, as I said, choose different test splits, batch sizes, and history lengths. And let's start and see like what will change if we say change model complexity. Let's say we want to use only one recurrent layer, and let's see what happens. So let's call this model just one RNN, meaning that it only uses one recurrent layer, and let's train it. We can also train a model for which, in addition to recurrent layers, we can include convolutional layers, and let's just use 4 convolutional layers. And yeah, don't forget to switch to weekly. So another important feature is that we can change the scaling type. So by default, we're actually, yeah, we're saying here automatic, but in most cases, we'll actually be using local scaling. And target here actually means a target column. So target column is a column that you actually want to make predictions for. Like in this case, we are making predictions for how much units will be sold for some particular TV sets. So like, this will be our target. So if we don't want to use local scaling, then we want to skip it. So let's just click yes and see what happens with only global scaling. So let's call this no local scaling model. So, and by the way, in our interface here, like we're showing right now, we're training 4 models, and they're actually being trained in parallel. Yeah, another feature, cool feature, like I mentioned, data augmentation. So this data set is not very big. So we may actually try to generate synthetic time series. And let's just do that. Let's click yes. So again, let's don't forget that we're doing this on a weekly basis. So yes, so we have a few models training. It will take 10 to 15 minutes, like in my experience. I have pre-trained some of the models in my own organization into my own project. And while these models are training, let me actually go and explore the models that I've trained recently. So once you actually train the models, so here I've trained a bunch of models with like different advanced options. Like if you click on models, like you will see like different details. You can also like click on the model and it will show you like what training parameters I used, model versions, and yeah, you can also deploy a model and see and see visualizations of predictions that are put on top of the time series. I will show it to you in a minute. But what is important, like you need to evaluate how different models perform, and for this we have this metrics tab here. Yeah, sorry, I need to switch to this organizations. So when you click on metrics for different models, you will see a few highlighted metrics. So in general, for forecasting, lower numbers mean better. And we highlight two metrics on this page. We call this NRMSE and CNRMSE. NRMSE stands for normalized root mean squared error. And if you click on some of the models, you will see detailed metrics here. And basically, yeah, the core of our main metric, at least that we are focusing on internally, is normalized root mean squared error. So, and this error is basically, so we take predictions and we compare them with actual values. We first compute root mean squared error, and then since different products different items might be having like different scales, like say one TV set is selling like in thousands and another TV set is set in hundreds, we would still would like to compare predictions between them. If we just use a plain root mean squared error, then since the scales for these products are different, we might skew our overall metric to one product or another. That's why we are actually normalizing for we are doing normalization, and in normalization we basically take the mean of predictions and divide our root mean squared error by this. So within this detailed metrics page, we also break down metrics for different items based on different parameters. Like here, we split our metrics by the quartiles of our error. And on the left quartile basically corresponds to top 25% of products, top 25 by error. And if you click on it, we can actually see like what products are the easiest to predict. And yeah, on the right, we're actually we're showing similar bar chart, but we're splitting our products based on how much volume, like how much products like were sold total, like within every time series. And we also see that actually in general, if you have so on the left quartile basically corresponds to products that had the most amount of volume, and conversely, you can also think of that is you might in some way interpret it as the amount of data that is available for this particular products. And we basically see that the more volume, the more data we have, the better predictions we can make. And similarly, we can click on every quartile and see like what products like make easier to predict. If you scroll down, we will actually have a few additional metrics that are available to you. We also compute some baseline model to make a comparison with our neural network-based forecasting model. There are different metrics here. I probably don't have too much time to go into every detail about each one of them, but you can click on this question marks, and it will actually give you a nice description what every metric basically means. Okay, so let's go back to the list of our models and actually see how different advanced options influenced our metrics. So so this basically was my original baseline model that I just trained with the default options, and we have an error here of about like 60%. So what we can do, like, you know, the first thing that I've tried, okay, let's make it a network simpler. Let's just use one recurrent layer, and this actually has improved an error by by significant margin. Another thing that I've tried is using like different like combinations of RNNs and convolutional layers. Like in this case, I was using default number of recurrent layers, but put 2 convolutional layers on top of it, and again, it actually improved our metrics here. So I've also tried like increasing like number of recurrent units, and it made our predictions slightly better in comparison with baseline, but worse in comparison with just using one recurrent layer. And basically the reason here is that our data set is not that big. So if we're doing if we're increasing the size of a network, if we're increasing model complexity, we will actually overfit. So one thing that I've mentioned is, yeah, we can, like I disabled local scaling, and our predictions became instantly significantly worse. But to mitigate that, if we really don't want to use local scaling, we can also try using no local scaling, but with convolutional layers. So they sort of like take responsibility on themselves a little bit on how to do the scaling. So and it actually helps in comparison with the case of no local scaling, but it's still much worse than our default configurations. And yeah, you can control some other parameters. I think one cool feature is, like, I still want to maybe highlight this data augmentation. So when you click on data on the model that was trained with data augmentation option, you will see like additional tab here called augmentation, and basically what it will show you is it will demonstrate you synthetic time series that were generated based on time series for each individual product. And there are even like different variations of this time series. Like, you know, we provide here four variations. I find this feature to be like very cool personally. So once you actually train the model, let's actually check if our models trained. So yeah, so basically, yeah, I switched back to my organization and project that I showed, that I started training models originally. So now one model has already trained, and we can click on it. And if we, yeah, we can explore metrics, and you know, they're the same as the previous projects that I was showing you. So basically now, if we want to visualize predictions, and if we wanna use model in real life, you can use model to make real predictions using our API. So we just click on deploy the model, and oops, sorry. And we already provide some name, and yeah, let's just deploy it. And yeah, it takes some time to make a deployment. I have some deployment available also in my other project, but we'll need to restart them. So let's wait a little bit. And while the model is deploying, I might, yeah. So now another model has trained. So let's compare. Yeah, like, yeah, we already see, like, you know, this model had a positive impact on our metrics. Yeah, and another model has trained. So yeah, so we see now that the model has deployed. So if we click on deployments, if we want to visualize, we click on dashboard, and it will take us to the dashboard site. And basically here, now we can actually see our time series. So the orange part here is actually our training part of the time series, and the blue part is test. So by default on this dashboard, we are actually making predictions into the future that was even not available in our data set, but we can switch, we can shift it. Let's basically shift the predictions to start on the beginning of our test set, which is like May 30th. We just click here and go back here. So yeah, so basically here we can see like in real life here, we just trained the model, and it's already able to generate some reasonable forecast. And you know, in this case, I wanted to use this data set to basically highlight, you know, in some cases, you know, this is a real life data set, meaning that, you know, for this time series, what we had like in the data in the beginning, like we had no sales for this particular TV set, and then some event happened, and we had a peak, and then, you know, this whole thing started to went down. Maybe the popularity of this time set has went down, and our model was actually able like to pick up the trends. And then we can also shift. We can also choose different products or like different items here, and it will like show predictions like for different use cases. Yeah, you can, like in this case, we see, like, you know, we had a lot of sales in the beginning, but then we had like very few sales in the end, and then still like the model was able to pick that up. So so this is like a yeah, this is a a real-life demonstration of what our platform can do in forecasting. A couple of additional things that you can do after you explore and like verify predictions visually on our platform. You can then generate batch predictions, meaning that you can actually like select you can basically now customize like what kind of predictions you want to get, like where do you want to save them, where do you want to start these predictions, how many predictions you want to do. You may actually specify many more predictions than the prediction length that was specified when you created the model. And you know, once these things are done, they will be saved in text files that you will be able to download like in whatever option like you chose. So okay, like here again, like with a few models we already trained, and actually like local scaled model is pretty bad. Without local scaling. So it's a good choice that we're actually by default enable it. Okay, so with this one, I think I would like to conclude at least a demonstration of our forecasting use case. Again, using our platform, it is intuitive and straightforward to generate models for different use cases. So we demonstrated you how to do it for predictive modeling and also in forecasting. And even if you don't have much background in machine learning or deep learning, you can still use our UI to upload a data set and click a few buttons to basically train a model. And then if you want to get under the hood, you can actually still use our platform to tweak different features, different options, and we also provide you with contextual help. So hopefully it will be it is also a learning experience for you, and you can generate models with different characteristics on the fly, and you can compare metrics between them, and you can compare visually by yourself predictions for different models within our UI. A few links for useful resources on our main website, also some documentation and tutorials. We also have a blog, and if you have any questions how to use our platform, you can reach to me at yuri@abacus.ai or ankit@ankit.abacus.ai. And thank you very much for your attention. And if there is nothing else that Ankit would like to add, then yeah, we will switch to Q&A session now.
Yep. Thank you, Yuri. We could carry on with the Q&A. You guys are most welcome to ask any of the questions to any of us. So somebody, I remember, asked about the model showcase. Like they wanted to see how they could share the trained model. So I think this is the time when I could show them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me do that real quick. Okay. So let's say this is your org where you train the model, right? This is your project list page. You go inside your project. See, now the models are trained. So your models are also trained, I believe. So you can now play with them and analyze the metrics. But yeah, coming back to the point, you can come to the metrics section. You can check them here, or you can go to the model section, select the model, which will bring you to this screen where you will have all the details of the different versions of the models, the deployment that has been created. If you want to retrain, you can use this button. If you want to go back to the metrics, you can use this button. It will take you again to the metrics. or you can just click here and then share it. So it is automatically taking the name, but if you want, you can change it. Description, you can write anything like my first predictive model for blood transfusion. You can give them the data source also if you want, like this. And then you can upload some good picture that you might have in your, okay, I have this, let's say. Okay. And then just click on share. And there you go. You have the model shared with the community. Go to the public page. Okay, so it's asking you to create a profile since you have not. So I create a new account. User handle, anything you would find cool. You can upload your avatar. And there you go. You're all set with your profile in just 2 seconds with your new model, with your image. This is the predictive modeling use case. This is the quick overview of what the metrics were right on the interface itself. You can upload it. So this is the link that you entered there. So people will be able to know what was the source of the data set. Not only that, they will be able to see the details here, like what were the columns, what was the type of the columns, how many distinct values, and what is the probability distribution for each value, which is kind of cool to have. And then the metric explanations will be right there. And these are the top metrics that makes it very intuitive to see how good the predictions were. So there we go. This is the model showcase. This is the featured model for the last month that we have. Every month we feature people. So that's pretty much it about model showcase, sharing your models. And if you have any other questions, I'll be most privileged to answer them, or Yuri could answer them. Could be anything about forecasting, predictive modeling. We have other use cases as well on our platform. You can play with them. Like if you go on creating a project, you would have a variety of use cases under various solutions like forecasting, fraud security, IT, marketing, recommendation AI. And then we have different kind of use cases per solution. And then you could take advantage of all those links that Yuri already shared, the documentation where you could learn, even if you are not coming from a machine learning background, you know only a bit of programming, then also you are very good to go. There's nothing else needed, just the documentation and few clicks in order to get to something really amazing and making your applications intelligent. So I really encourage you to take ample advantage of this opportunity. And if you have any question, anywhere you got stuck, just email me. I'll be more than happy to help. If you want any suggestions, just email me about them. I'll be happy to take them, take your feedback. Like as Yuri said, we have a lot of contextual help in the platform as well. So you can take advantage of that as well. Like for example, here, if you go select a project, what is the data pipeline? What is the schema mapping? How this section works in our interface? What are the different statuses? So everything is quite intuitive. I've personally wrote a lot of descriptions about these metrics, these contextual helps. So I would be more than happy to get your feedback on them if they're easy to comprehend. If not, then I would be happy to rewrite for you guys. So I really welcome you all to take the advantage of this platform, to not get into the, like for people who really like take advantage of machine learning, but don't have much context, they really cannot can avoid all those nitty gritty details and still get state-of-the-art predictions, as we both showed it for different use cases. In just few minutes, you would be able to have that. And then you can have like a top-down approach where you have the results at hand, and then you dig deeper into the specifications of how they were achieved. So yep, I encourage you to do that. these data sets are very like small because of the limitations of time, but you can really pick up some complicated big data set. And then, so you see, right, like that is the beauty. Yuri could get so much from the advanced options, even with that small amount of data that got trained in 10 minutes. So imagine what you could be able to do with such advanced options if you have like a huge data set comprised of like millions of data points, and then you tweak these options and play with them. So it's going to be fun if you try that. And let me open the questions. There's something I can see here.
Yes, in the Q&A, we have quite a few questions in the Q&A. And also remind for the folks, please post your questions in the Q&A tabs. And also, if you prefer to speak to ask questions, you can raise your hand. We can unmute you to speak.
Yeah, so I see like a couple of questions on forecasting. I can probably address them. So the first one is like when you use CNN plus RNN model, how can you make the data set to fit in the format that CNN requires? So basically, yeah, it's pretty simple. So all you need to do is, you just organize. Yeah, you need to upload time series. So our CNN, it uses one-dimensional convolutions that are actually that fit very nicely to our use case. So our convolutional layer will our convolutional layers will work on every time series separately. But the idea is like, since we're like training on several different items or products or whatever, like your items are, that our network will be able to learn some general trends and some general predictors that hopefully will work like across them. So I have seen another question on convolutions. So yeah, do you see it feasible in the future to include external predictors such as weather, traffic, etc. in your time series based forecasting? Actually, we already provide this capability. So like I've uploaded like in this example, I've uploaded only time series of sales performance themselves. But I've mentioned that we have another data set here, which we called item attributes. Let me actually just show it in the UI quickly. Share the screen again. So hopefully you can see it. So basically here, like in the UI, so I uploaded like this historic sales data, and this is basically just only sales for these TVs. But you can also upload item attributes dataset if you have it, and this item attributes dataset will actually, well, if you have the data on it, you can actually include it here. Like for this TVs, you can also include like what kind of TV was used, like some parameters of TV sets. You can also include like what salesperson was actually selling this particular TV, and etc. and etc. So yeah, so I think you should be able to do that on our platform as is, like many things regarding some additional external predictors. Yeah, so okay, anything else? Okay.
Okay, so one thing I can answer here. Yeah, for the question about the Slack, I think Lou, you could add me and I'll be there available for the feedback for sure. No worries there. I would be actually glad to do that. Second is notebooks available in your system or external services. Yep. So I showed you the documentation center. I'll share the screen and quickly go through one more thing in there. Here is the doc center. So there's this getting started screen that will get you started on the platform, walk you through step-by-step process of doing that. This use case screen for each use case, for the details on each use case, how to upload data, what kind of schema for that data set, what are the training metrics, what are the advanced options associated with those training. for that use case, and how would you deploy after training the model. Everything is encompassed here. And there recently we have introduced this tutorial section where you could have these notebooks that will make you very, very familiar with the REST API that we provide so that you could use them to train your model and deploy them. So these are per use case. So these are use case specific notebooks, and you could utilize them to get very familiar with each use case and the platform overall as well. This is the connected services. Like if you wanna, like if you have some AWS account, you wanna connect your bucket. So these are the documentations for that part. This is the API reference, which goes into each individual API method if you're very familiar with APIs, and if you have some application you're interested embedding, and if you're interested in embedding like some sort of use case result that you have generated using our platform to your web application, desktop application, or anything else. So you're most welcome to do that. You're most welcome to like utilize these notebooks, run them in Colab, which is free, as you all might be aware. So I think that answers that question as well. About the free trial, I can pass this page on Slack channel, and Lou can pass it to you. So yeah, I'm not over the top of my head. I'm not sure where's the pricing page right now, but yeah, I can surely get back to you on that. Anything else that we missed? Is it possible to add new features, functionality to the platform? Yep, we daily do that. Our machine learning engineers like Yuri developed quite a lot of advanced options recently for forecasting. So yes, we are always in the process of making it better, developing new features. And as I said, as I answered in one of those questions, there might be some features that we don't support, like for example, to target at this time in predictive modeling. But if the time comes and we get such kind of data, then we would be privileged to be able to introduce that feature as well. So yes, we are always constantly striving for making it better and more handy to use and easy to use for all of you. Yeah, I got the link. I'll join it for sure soon.
Yeah, regarding this one, we're actually like we have a few clients with which we like work closely, and they would use our platform and like come back to us and say, okay, like it would be nice like to see this, and we evaluate like if this is a reasonable thing to do, and if it's reasonable, yeah, we experiment with it, and if it works correctly, then we put it back into product. Okay, I'm also looking through the chat. See, there is one request about augmentation part. So yeah, I can give maybe like a little bit of more general explanation. So basically, yeah, we're using internally we're using what is called DAGAN, so data augmentation generative adversarial networks. So GANs, generative adversarial networks, or GANs, are this are models that will are very popular models at the moment. And like if you look at if you see like some videos on YouTube, or just some images of new people faces that were generated, so most likely it was like generated using this technology. So in this case, we're actually using it to generate new time series that look similarly to what you have originally in your data set. So basically, the way it works, yeah, we internally implemented a generative adversarial network, and we first train it on the data sets that you provided, and then we just ask it, okay, spit out time series that look like close to what you had originally in your data set. And we experimented with this feature, and we find that for small data sets, it might actually make a difference. For big data sets that have a lot of time series, it's probably there are a few cases where sometimes you should be like careful about the data that you provide during the training, and yeah, we've seen a few cases where actually if you provide too much data and you don't have enough model complexity, then your performance might suffer. Well, but it's a question that is dependent on like each particular use case. And in general, more data means better, whether we have like true original data, or we also supplement with some data augmentation techniques. And there are different ones. There are some more analytic techniques how to do that. But with GANs, we hope that GANs themselves will be able to learn some interesting features in your data sets that will be useful for generating similarly looking time series.
Great. I think that's all for today. We still have a few more minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. If anyone have a last minute questions, feel free to post or ask. By the way, I saw we have attendees want to have further follow up with the feedbacks. Did you guys like leave the contact emails for them, or you can join the Slack? I think he seems like quite have some quite feedbacks on overall the content of the
so
steps.
we put like actually you could reach us like on our final slides in our presentations are like some links.
Okay, great,
yeah,
great.
we have emails.
Yeah. Yeah, or these are the emails. Feel free to reach out to them. Yeah, if we don't have further questions,